What if the San Antonio Spurs didn't just win a couple of games this week? What if they exposed something the entire NBA wasn't ready to admit yet? In the span of just a few days, the Spurs took down the Los Angeles Lakers and then did something nobody else had been able to do. They beat the 24-1 Oklahoma City Thunder, the same Thunder that looked untouchable, the same Thunder people were already penciling into the finals. And San Antonio didn't do it with chaos or desperation basketball. They did it with control. And once you look closer at how these wins happened, it starts to feel less like a fluke and a lot more like a warning. Because this wasn't just about one hot night. This was about timing, health, and the return of a player who changes everything the moment he steps on the floor. The Spurs that showed up against Oklahoma City were not the same team OKC would have faced a few weeks earlier. Victor Wembanyama was back, and against a team like the Thunder, that matters more than almost any matchup in the league. Oklahoma City's entire offense is built on pressure, relentless drives, quick decisions, confidence at the rim. They want defenders scrambling, rotating late, and guessing. But the second Wemby stepped back onto the floor, that comfort disappeared. Suddenly, drives slowed down. Floaters came earlier than planned. Kickouts felt rushed instead of natural. Wemby didn't need to block everything to dominate the game. His presence alone forced hesitation. Players second-guess shots they normally take without thinking. And when a team that thrives on rhythm loses that rhythm, everything starts to unravel. This wasn't about highlight blocks. It was about control. Oklahoma City stopped playing freely and started playing carefully. And once that happened, the game tilted. But Wemby's return wasn't just about defense. It allowed the Spurs to play more aggressively everywhere else. Guards pressured harder. Wings stayed home instead of overhelping. Everyone knew the rim was protected. And once OKC realized they couldn't attack the paint the same way, the door opened for something bigger. Because now the Spurs weren't reacting anymore. They were dictating. And that's when the real problem started. The Spurs that showed up against Oklahoma City were not the same team OKC would have faced a few weeks earlier. Victor Wembanyama was back, and against a team like the Thunder, that matters more than almost any matchup in the league. Oklahoma City's entire offense is built on pressure, relentless drives, quick decisions, confidence at the rim. They want defenders scrambling, rotating late, and guessing. But the second Wemby stepped back onto the floor, that comfort disappeared. After Wemby re-anchored the defense, the Spurs executed the rest of the game plan with discipline most young teams simply don't have. They didn't overreact to fakes. They didn't chase highlights. They trusted the system. San Antonio forced Oklahoma City into uncomfortable shots late in the clock. Instead of clean drives or open threes, OKC found themselves settling for floaters, contested pull-ups, and rushed decisions. The Spurs stayed connected, communicated on every switch, and refused to give OKC the chaos they thrive on. What stood out most was the composure. No panic runs, no emotional swings, no stretches where the Spurs looked overwhelmed by the moment. For a team that's supposedly ahead of schedule, they played like they'd been here before. And when the final minutes arrived, Oklahoma City looked tight, while San Antonio looked calm. That's not supposed to happen. But before anyone could chalk it up as a bad Thunder night, the Spurs did something days later that completely changed the conversation. Because Victor Wembanyama didn't even play against the Lakers. He was out, hurt, watching. And this is where most teams fall apart. When you remove a generational centerpiece, the entire identity usually collapses. Defensive coverages loosen, ball movement slows, confidence fades. But that's not what happened. The Spurs walked into the Lakers game and played the exact same way. They moved the ball, they stayed connected defensively, they controlled tempo instead of chasing it. The Lakers, a team full of experience and star power, looked like the ones waiting for something to break, but it never did. San Antonio didn't rely on hero shots. They didn't play scared. They trusted each other. And that's the part that matters most. This wasn't about surviving without Wemby. It was about proving the foundation holds even when he's gone. That win eliminated the last easy excuse. It wasn't just Wemby. It wasn't just matchups, it wasn't luck. The Spurs were complete, and that made Wemby's presence even more terrifying. When Wemby came back, it didn't feel like a young star returning to learn. It felt like a force re-entering the system. He's not playing like someone figuring things out anymore. His reads are faster, his fouls are smarter, his defensive positioning controls entire possessions without him ever touching the ball. Teams aren't testing him the way they used to. They're adjusting game plans. They're pulling bigs out of the paint. They're hesitating before driving. That's the difference between potential and presence. Wemby isn't chasing highlights. He's managing games. And the scariest part? He's doing it within the flow of the offense. No forcing, no panic, just impact. But even with all of that, this stretch proved something important. The Spurs don't rise and fall with one player. This doesn't look like a typical young team. The spacing makes sense. The ball rarely sticks. Defensive communication doesn't break down after mistakes. Every player knows their role, and more importantly, they trust each other to execute it. That's why they didn't collapse without Wemby. That's why they didn't flinch against OKC. This isn't nostalgia, this isn't reputation, this is structure. They don't rely on emotional runs. They don't hunt mismatches recklessly. They wait, they probe. And when openings appear, they attack with purpose. That kind of discipline usually takes years. San Antonio already has it. And once a team reaches that stage, the timeline changes fast. Every time a young team flashes, the response is the same. They're exciting, but they're not ready. Give them another year. Next season is the real jump. But history doesn't always work that way. When a generational anchor arrives, timelines compress, windows open early, and teams that can defend, execute, and stay composed don't need years to learn how to win. The Spurs aren't trying to outscore everyone, they're trying to outlast them. And that's a playoff formula. Defense travels, discipline holds, size creates matchup problems. And San Antonio checks every box. The league might still be treating them like a future problem. But the signs say otherwise. No one is saying they're favorites, no one is handing them trophies. But the question is no longer ridiculous. Because if you can beat the Lakers without your star, and then beat the most dominant team in basketball with him, what exactly are you missing? 7-game series expose weaknesses. And right now, it's hard to find one that feels fatal. Who wants to attack the rim against them? Who wants to deal with their size? Who wants to face a team that doesn't panic? The Spurs don't need hype. They don't need attention. They're just stacking proof. This week wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't celebrated the way it should have been. But it mattered. The Spurs beat the Lakers without Victor Wembanyama. They beat the 24-1 Thunder with him. That combination changes everything. They didn't announce themselves, they didn't guarantee anything, they just showed the league what's coming. And if this is what San Antonio looks like right now, the rest of the NBA might not be ready for what happens next.